Blah 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 blah. James, where are you? Where are you, James? James!
I can't believe he's left us.
James!
Waiting for him.
Everybody shout James because he's not fucking turned up yet. What time is it? 5 past? 5 past. 5 past 8. He's not here yet.
Right, what time do you reckon he'll turn up? 10 past? My money's on 10 past.
I don't know.
Actually, I might change that. I reckon he's fallen asleep and won't turn up.
it might be 9 o'clock and he'll go, I thought the clocks had gone backwards or forwards. Right. Anyway, hello to I'll Tell You What TV with myself, Dave, and with Steve, and supposed to be with James, but he's gone AWOL. So I think we might just have to fucking wait for him.
Yep.
That's going to be a good podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, we'll just carry on without him.
Yeah. King. I'll tell you what we'll do, right? What we'll do, seeing as we're waiting for James, and he will appear hopefully at some point. I mean, to be fair, I do know he has been very busy the last few days, but usually he would let us know if he's not going to make it. Now, we are going to be talking F1 news. We'll wait for James to arrive to do that. But what we will be doing as well is talking about this weekend's Spa Grand Prix, which means that we're going to have our predictions to do. We've got our usual 4, which would be who's on pole, who's going to win, who's on the podium, first to crash out, but we do need 2 other things to make a prediction on. So we can have a little think about what we could do as a prediction, but not only that, we could, if anyone's got any ideas of what predictions we could do, feel free to comment on them. I can see that Ray's made a comment. At the moment, Ray, we're all right. Thank you very much, because we really want to take the piss out of James when he turns up, seeing as he is supposed to be here. And we've got so actually, he is going to be here because he did message us earlier saying, saying, "Oh, you guys are ready because there's going to be a Star Wars quiz in the after show." So unless he's probably still sat there, you know, writing down his Star Wars questions. So for anyone that's interested in knowing, we have altered our format a little bit. I mean, we have been doing quite long podcasts where we talk about Formula 1 and we also talk about loads of other random stuff. What we've decided to do is do our usual F1 podcast, and then when we're done talking about Formula 1, we'll take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back live where we'll do our after show. So once the F1 stuff is finished being discussed with, we'll have a break and then we'll come back. And I know that I've got a couple of things planned for Steve and James for the after show. I know Steve has got something planned for James, and obviously James has got something planned for us. But if he's not here, he ain't going to be able to fucking do it, is he?
No, but I was just thinking, if he takes too long to turn up, we'll have to tell him that he's not got time to do it now.
Yeah. James's Star Wars quiz will be, what's my new name? Obi Went Kenobi is what it will be. So yeah, so if anyone's got James's number, feel free to message. Might have to phone him through Facebook, you know. Maybe.
Just thinking, it instead of like a Darth Vader or a Lord or a Sith Lord or anything like that, James will just have to be known as the Time Lord.
Yeah, bloody hell. So anyway, predictions that we're going to make for this weekend's Grand Prix, Steve. You know what? I hadn't even thought about it because I did actually forget that we do predictions until about 5 minutes before we went live. So I haven't really thought about any possible predictions we could do.
Well, there's the obvious one with it being Spa, and that is who's going to crash at Eau Rouge. But could that be just too obvious? Obviously, in the past we've done safety car or number of safety cars, or will the safety car affect the race or something along those lines. But I think we probably should do something more Spa specific, if you know what I mean. Something that tends to only happen around Spa, like something to do with Eau Rouge or Pouhon or Blanchimont. Will anybody make an overtake around the outside of Blanchimont? Will anybody catch a bus at the bus stop?
Well, considering the bus stop is no longer there, but yeah, I'm definitely going to need to have a think about it. I mean, one prediction we could have is how many times will it be mentioned that Fernando Alonso is retiring? Because with that news,
during the race, once the lights have gone,
because I mean, obviously that's big news, and we did talk about that last week. I'll tell you what, one thing we can talk about, seeing as it is new news today, or was it last night, that Pierre Gasly is going to take Daniel Ricciardo's seat in the Red Bull, seeing as Ricciardo is going to Renault. So Pierre Gasly to Red Bull then, Steve, do you think it's a good move, the right move?
I think it's the only option Red Bull have got. I'm not saying it's a bad option. Normally drivers would get a few seasons at Toro Rosso before they get a chance to go into Red Bull. Is he good enough? It's difficult to say because of who he's been racing up against. You know, Hartley's not really been showing his full capabilities, so it's difficult to judge. And then again, he's got a Honda power unit, so that's been difficult to judge against the other teams and stuff. So, but if it wasn't Gasly, where else would they go? Who would they turn to?
Well, I mean, that's, like I say, that's one of the key things about it, isn't it? They haven't got a lot of option. I did see something the other day. I just want to see if I did send it to myself on Facebook, that there was something about a potential new youngster in Red Bull. No, I didn't send it to myself, unfortunately. Yeah, there was a name that was mentioned, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but there is a youngster that is making waves a little bit in the lower formulas. So it's almost as if with the Red Bull Young Driver program, there has been a little bit of a lull, but they are going to start coming through again. But for me, I mean, Gasly in there's not that bad a decision, but I'd like to know whether it was Carlos Sainz that said, no, you know what, I don't want to drive Red Bull Honda, or whether it was Red Bull that said, actually, Carlos, we want Gasly instead.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere where it was completely his decision to go to McLaren over Red Bull. But if that's the case, I mean, that's two drivers that have turned down Red Bull. I mean, you've got Ricciardo and Sainz that both turned down Red Bull to go to teams that you would normally see as an inferior team to Red Bull. I mean, for Sainz, it's a good move. I mean, I did say it last week, last podcast. I did say that Carlos Sainz will be taken over from Alonso, and yeah, pretty much the next day after our podcast, it was news. But yeah, there's going to be some empty seats, you know, if they're not careful in some of these teams, because I just don't see the drivers being there.
Well, I mean, the thing is, with Alonso leaving, it did open that door in the McLaren. I did think that that's where Ricciardo would go. I mean, it is going to be exciting to see what Ricciardo can do at Renault, and it's going to be interesting to see what Carlos Sainz can do at McLaren, because I can't see that as necessarily a bad move for him. I'm not convinced about a Honda in a Red Bull yet, other than the fact that Pierre Gasly has a couple of decent results. But then if you look at it, Williams are doing shockingly bad, and they should be ahead of Toro Rosso. Force India have not been great and should be ahead of Toro Rosso. McLaren have not been great and should be miles ahead of Toro Rosso. So Toro Rosso Honda may just have been getting an advantage, or Pierre Gasly may have been getting the advantage of the fact that 3 or 4 teams are having absolute shockers of seasons, which does make him look like he's better than he perhaps is. And
not only that, when he has had his good positions, it's been when the Mercedes have failed to finish, which doesn't really happen. Or when like the Ferraris have had a problem and ended up dropping towards the back of the grid at the start of a race, or so it's helped the Gasly in that aspect. I haven't seen it where he's gone and put it 5th on the grid and then finished 5th. He seemed to have qualified reasonably well for the car.
Sorry,
and then
we have news from James.
Yeah.
Just woke up. Sorry, hang on. Right, everyone get ready, folks. Everybody get fucking ready. He's getting it tonight. You want to do a Star Wars fucking quiz? Fuck off. This 15 minutes, 14 minutes late he is at the moment. So yeah. Sorry, go on, Steve.
I just think Gasly's been fortunate. Okay, you've got to put the car there, but he's had others fall out of the way in front of him, which has helped him along the way so far. If it was in a Red Bull powered by the Honda, I think he would have finished in place. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, you did break up a bit there, but I think I kind of got what you were going on about. I tell you what, seeing while we're waiting for James, I got sent a picture of James. It was a sneaky picture that was sent of James. Would you like to see it?
Go on then.
Right, you'll have to give me a moment so I can get ready. Just get the picture ready. So yeah, I'm not sure who it was that took the picture. It might have been his missus. I don't know. But somebody has. I won't reveal who has sent me this picture of James. But yeah. Okay, so there we go. Maybe this is why he's running a little bit late. He hasn't just woke up. He's been busy. There you go. Yeah, I think he's been having a bit of a play, hasn't he?
I don't understand it. I got home from work about 5:30 and thought.
Have you been playing with your lightsaber?
No. I thought to myself, I'll have a shower. So that were about 6-ish. I remember just messaging Steve on the other messenger. So what time was that, Steve?
I don't know, it was a couple of hours ago.
Yeah, so I just messaged him on that, then got a shower. Then I just got out of the shower and I felt right wheezy. I was a bit like, maybe it were a bit too hot or something. And then I sort of like crashed on bed. And then Vicky's just got home and I've just woke up and gone, what time is it? She went, I think it's just after 8. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, I still feel a bit like sicky. Like, ooh.
I don't know.
So, if I go quiet, I'm just waking up, that's all.
Well, you do realise for turning up late there's a forfeit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your Star Wars quiz can fuck off.
Yeah.
No. Well, anyway, that's for the after show later if James is stuck for. But James, we've got loads planned for the after show later.
Oh, have we?
Yeah.
Bloody hell!
I know. Been busy today. Been busy.
Is Ray here with his helmet?
Ray's watching with his helmet this time. I think his helmet might be in his hands though. But anyway, right, okay. Should we talk about F1 now that the whole crew is here?
Sorry, I thought we weren't even live yet.
We've been live for 18 minutes, James.
Sorry guys. Sorry listeners, this is me. Typical me.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, James, just to let you know, we were just talking about Pierre Gasly the news that he's moving to Red Bull and that Carlos Sainz is going into McLaren. And I was asking Steve whether he knew whether it was Carlos Sainz's decision or Red Bull's decision for Sainz not to be in the Red Bull. And Steve said he read somewhere that it was Sainz's decision. So I'm curious about your thoughts on those two driver changes.
Well, I was listening back to what we said last week, and in a way, we were saying that if we were dealt the decision of could you go to Red Bull with Verstappen or you go to McLaren with well, we don't know at the moment who the second driver's going to be. So we were like, well, you probably go to McLaren, really, because right now it's not amazing. But all it takes is a couple of years, and before you know it, there could be, for all we know, there could be back up at front. And for all we know, with Red Bull Honda, they could be in a worse position than they are this year. So I think I would have, if I were given the opportunity, I'd probably have gone with McLaren, like what Carlos Sainz has gone with.
I also asked Steve, or sort of mentioned to Steve, that with Red Bull going with Pierre Gasly, I mean, they haven't really got much choice about that anyway. But with them going with Gasly, is Gasly good enough to compete with Verstappen, or is there a little bit of a... Have we been... what's the word, misled a little bit, because the likes of Williams, who should beat Toro Rosso, are doing shit, Force India, who should beat him, aren't doing great, McLaren, who should beat him easily, aren't doing great. So there's at least 3, maybe 4 teams that should be beating the Toro Rosso that aren't.
Possibly, but at least we'll find out. We'll see how good he is against Verstappen. But I think this is probably no offence to Verstappen, because I think on his day he is incredible. But I think it's probably one of the weakest Red Bull lineups since 2007.
Coulthard and Webber,
or clean or something. But I know that Max Verstappen is good. I mean, there's his crazy wins have proved it, but we haven't seen a consistent run of results. Mind you, to be fair, there's something clearly going wrong with the Renault Red Bull installation, because that car looks like it's amazing and then it's dead. It's like, what? It's just like, it's 2 completely different extremes.
It's like a blow-up sex doll. Great fun until it's got a puncture.
Yeah, but they might now, with the Honda, for all we know, it might be amazing, but more than likely, it's probably going to just be mediocre.
Yeah, quite possibly.
But really, Carlos Sainz, you could tell he was getting itchy and getting a bit pissed off with Red Bull, with them choosing Verstappen over him, even though he had more points. And Verstappen were doing them fancy, pretty crazy moves, and that's what has got him to Formula 1 anyway. But it's still the jury. For me, I think the jury's still out on Max Verstappen.
I mean,
I think I said at the beginning of this year, if I were Dan Ricciardo, I'd be worried, because if Max Verstappen hits his stride and starts pulling crazy results out of the bag every single race that the car doesn't break down, then Ricciardo needs to think about looking elsewhere. But really, I've got to say, over the season so far, Danny Ricciardo's done a way better job than Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I mean, with Verstappen, I mean, to be fair, Verstappen is still young, but if you take away the wins that Verstappen's had, what's he done?
Yeah, I think even though Max Verstappen didn't win the race, I think the one time where it kind of shone that he's amazing was that time, I think it were Brazil 2016.
Yeah.
that was probably the one moment where I was like, oh my god, that's amazing.
He did also have his Monaco drive until he crashed out with Grosjean.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, I've yet to see Max Verstappen in that quality of championship material, because
Thinking about it, I can think of one. I can't think of the exact details, but I can think of one that will trigger your memory. There was a race not so long ago in the rain where he was phenomenal and everybody else was struggling like fuck. Trying to think what track it was at. I think it was last season.
We're in Brazil, 2016.
You know what it probably is, the one that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So
I think he went round outside of Rosberg at turn 3.
Yeah. So I'm being put off a little bit by the smell of something on fire outside. I don't know what it is, but something's burning. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, enough about Verstappen. I'm sure we're going to hear plenty about him over the next few years. I mean, the news obviously is out, and we've already talked about Alonso and his decision to step down. Now, Van Dorn's seat, that is an interesting one for me, because the way I see that is, in McLaren, in Carlos Sainz, they've got a very good driver. In Stoffel Van Dorn, I don't see that. And it's not just because I'm not a fan of his. Not once did he put up a performance that got anywhere near to Fernando Alonso. And if you want to succeed in a team like McLaren, you at some points need to better your teammate, and he never did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, have you seen in the news today that Lando Norris has been handed FP1?
FP1. The thing is, I'm not surprised that McLaren are doing that, because if Fernando Alonso is out at the end of this year, McLaren have to do. They either say to Stoffel Van Dorn, look, you're our driver, don't worry. Or they say to Stoffel Van Dorn, look, at the moment you're our driver, but we need to examine our options. And if that means giving Lando Norris a few FP1 sessions in Alonso's car, then so be it. I can't see Alonso necessarily having a problem not having an FP1 session now, because it's not going to matter.
Can I just mention something about all these driver changes mid-season? And I think about this every year, but this year we seem to have more driver changes than most seasons. Right now, if this was other sport, then there would be room there for like almost race fixing or match fixing, like in football. You think once a deal's been done for a driver to go to a team, it would then go to that team, even if it's mid-season. Because what's wrong now with, say for instance, we'll take Daniel Ricciardo. Right, he's going to be going to Renault. Well, he's going to want Renault to be in the best position as possible next season. So the best thing he can do there is help Renault get more championship points.
I think it's mainly because Carlos Sainz will have a contract till the end of the year. If he had a race-by-race contract, then yeah, Daniel Ricciardo might be able to jump.
No, but every driver should. I mean, once you've been signed, you should jump. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe what Formula One should do is a little bit like what they do in football. Well, I suppose in a way they do, like, not necessarily have a transfer window, but you go, right, contracts cannot be signed until the season has ended and before the next season starts. So you can do all the discussions you like, but nobody's seat is confirmed or new contracts are confirmed until after the end of the season. Now, if you sign a 2-year deal, then you don't have to worry at the end of your first season unless the team wants to out you for somebody else. But that would probably work better and potentially avoid that kind of situation. I mean, to be fair, James has had his after wake up poo. To be fair, Formula One has a history. Every now and again, Formula One has a history of people pushing the boundaries of the rules or cheating when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, things like Alonso and McLaren Gate, Alonso's crash gate, or Renault's crash gate. there's always been, at some point in the history of Formula One, those kind of things happening. And I mean, you look at when Red Bull announced that they were going to be going with Honda next season. I think it was the first day of like the next F1 event. One of the first questions that was asked to Cyril Abiteboul at Renault was, will you stop sharing information with Red Bull now regarding the Renault engine and any upgrades and performance improvements?
Yep.
And that's straight away from the media, thinking, okay, are you now going to stop giving them a better package? Which is a wrong question to be in a situation to ask, but also actually the right question to have to ask, given the history of Formula One, and given things like Toro Rosso last year saying, we believe Renault are, well, actually it was French toast, wasn't it, James? We fucking don't like Renault, they're not giving us the proper part, they're telling us we're getting brand new parts, they're fucking second hand, I know that because I fucking scratched my initials on it, it's come back to me, the wankers, that kind of shit. And I can see that kind of stuff being kind of true. Obviously he didn't scratch his initials on it, but those kind of things do happen.
But it's the same with the drivers. Now you've got Daniel Ricciardo, who's going to be moving teams, and Max Verstappen. And are they going to give Daniel Ricciardo the same information as what they're going to give Max Verstappen to the end of the season? You know, on how the car's developing and what they've got coming up in the pipeline. No, they're not going to pass on any information like that because they know that it could be used at Renault next season.
Yeah.
Or even before next season.
Yeah. Now James hasn't come in on that, which means he's either out of range of his microphone at the moment or he's got his mute button
knocked himself out.
He might have done.
No, I'm here.
Oh.
Yeah, all I was just running through my head then were, do we happen to have an age on Mick Schumacher?
I know he's now won 2 races in the formula that he's racing in. I'll find out how old Mick Schumacher is. I don't know if he's got any kind of affiliation with any F1
19.
team. 19.
I think if I were an F1 team, I'd be snapping him up.
The thing is that I do know that he says, look, I don't want to get into Formula 1 on my name. I want to get into Formula 1 because I'm good enough to be there.
Yeah, but you know he's going to end up there anyway, so...
Well, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he has... I'm pretty sure he did win his second race a couple of weeks ago.
Wikipedia's not been updated then, it says 1.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Well, I could be wrong. Maybe I was reading an old post, but I know he definitely won his debut one. It did confuse me a bit because there's a Facebook page called Michael Schumacher, and it. I mean, no disrespect here. I think Schumacher was a phenomenal driver, if questionable at times. But the post read, Michael Schumacher says congratulations to Mick Schumacher, and I thought, I bet he didn't know, did he? Bit nasty, I know. We've got tumbleweed flowing across at the moment, but obviously somebody's got a Facebook page. It's not even like an official. It's just somebody who's decided to make a Michael Schumacher Facebook page to post stuff, which is okay, fair enough. But I still think that's a bit wrong. But I would like to see Mick Schumacher in Red Bull, and I'm just looking at his race suit. Actually, he has got a Mercedes badge on it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's associated with Mercedes when that's where, it's a German manufacturer, and it's where Michael Schumacher finished his career.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Talking a little bit about Mercedes, have either of you seen the Force India news that came out today?
No. Oh, is this about Mazipan or whatever his name is?
Yes.
Go on.
Is it Marzipan
I didn't read it
or
all.
Tamazipan? Okay, it is Mazepin. I don't know if you all know about this, James, but basically the Mazepin company challenges Stroll's Force India rescue deal. Uralkali, the Russian chemical giant run by the father of Force India's development driver Nikita Mazepin, has claimed the Formula One team's administrators did not act in its best interests in handling the sale, which was agreed earlier this month. Let's see. However, a statement released on Tuesday by Dmitry Mazepin's Uralkali company claimed the process conducted by the administrator of Force India Formula One Team Limited may not be in the best interests of Force India creditors and stakeholders and the sport in general. I don't know if it actually goes into any specifics, but I know when we heard about the deal had gone through, we did sort of question, well, what's happened to Rich Energy then? Because I mean, I think you and James both sort of questioned, well, has this all happened so that Stroll can own a team and get his kid into that team? And thinking that's the reason they've gone into administration, or whether there's nothing more to it than they were the best outcome at the end of it.
Well, surely from an administrator's point of view, it should just come down to basic numbers, and that is who's going to supply the most amount of money to pay off the creditors, and that can afford to do that, obviously. So they have to have all the paperwork showing that they've got the credit and the available credit to pay off the creditors. But also, they've got some sort of plan to go forward. Now, I'm wondering, whether... I mean, was there a deal done before it went into administration for Stroll to buy it? But surely that... The administrator is supposed to be independent and should just be saying, okay, this company needs this person to take it over because they've got the best financial credentials and everything else to go with it. Not just because this one was pre-arranged beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, the fella from Rich Energy did say that they had a deal agreed and he was on his way to go and basically make the payment, which then it's all a little bit confusing, because if he's got a deal agreed with Force India and he's ready to go and he's on his way to go and pay it, and then all of a sudden he finds out actually no, they're going into administration, I don't know, that to me does sound a little bit iffy, because it's like, okay, look, we can get out of administration here, but we'd have to take on a new team name. I mean, there's obviously much more to it than we know, but it does have a little bit of a smell of fish about it.
But it's like at the start of the season, the team knew that they were going to be in financial difficulties during the season, and before the season started, Rich Energy could have taken the team over and offered to take the team over before the season started, but they decided not to do that. It's almost as if they were waiting for the Stroll situation.
I've just been reading a little bit of this post, and I think, James, you might... I'm going to ask James this, actually, see if he's still with us. James, if you were the administrator and you had a few different companies that all were interested in taking over Force India, how would you get them to place their bids for taking over the company?
He's not there.
James! James!
Not again.
If we hear him snoring...
Either that or he's getting politics off because he's not done all his jobs.
Yeah, he's been asleep. Hang on a second. I think I've had a message. No. James, are you with us? Press your mute button.
I'm not paying him for this week, innit?
No. I don't know. But if it's not bad enough that he wakes up late, he's disappeared on us as well. Okay, now James, you'll give us a bad name.
I wonder if he wasn't actually on the toilet when you heard that noise earlier. He was just shitting himself.
He may have done. You never know. He did say he wasn't feeling too well, didn't he? Maybe he's gone off to
chuck his guts up.
Yeah, it's possible. We'll have to find out what he's eating today. But I would guess he's having a few issues. I hope he's feeling all right. If he does start snoring, though, we're all going to rip him. Alright then, Steve, seeing as James isn't with us at the moment, I'll ask you the question I asked James. If you were the administrator and you had a number of different companies that were interested in taking over Force India and they're all willing to put a bid in for Force India, how would you get them to do it?
You could do closed bids. So basically they don't announce what all the people are bidding, and then they take the highest bid, but also it's got to come along with the credentials of running an F1 team. It can't just be, okay, you've got the most amount of money, there's got to be someone that knows what they're doing.
So it wouldn't just be a financial bid; it'd be a financial and experience bid.
Yeah, it'd have to come with some sort of business plan on what you're going to do with taking the company forward, because you've got a lot.
Oh,
you've got a lot of
he
staff
is alive! He's alive! Right, James. Go on. Where have you been? So where have you been, James?
I had to set a movie going for Vicky. She can't do it herself.
Oh my days. Okay, well, we're talking about Force India still, and I asked you a question, but you didn't fucking answer.
I heard the general gist of it. Something about if you were Rich Energy or something like that.
Well, I was talking about how I think it seemed a little bit suspicious that you had a company like Rich Energy saying, we've got a deal agreed, we're on our way to pay, then we find out it's gone into administration, and were you and Steve right in saying that it's gone into administration so Stroll can get his hands on the deal? And I'm reading a bit of information about, did you hear anything that we said about Mazepin?
No, but what I do find very odd is the phrase, we were on our way to pay. Who in this day and age goes somewhere physically to pay for anything?
Well, if
but you've got to sign the papers.
Yeah, if
so
you're handing over multi-millions of pounds, you're not going to do that over the internet, are you? Well, you would, but
you transfer a deposit to say I'm on my way.
Yeah. I think if I was signing over hundreds of millions, I'd want to be fucking there, making sure it's not going to some Nigerian prince who's not real. Right, okay. Basically, there's just to just to recap you, James. There's a Russian chemical giant run by the father of Force India's development driver Nikita Mazepin, who has claimed that the Formula One team's administrators did not act in its best interest in handling the sale, which was agreed earlier this month. Right. So the question I asked you that you weren't here to answer, and I've just asked Steve, is if you were the administrator and there was a number of different companies that were interested in taking over Force India, how would you go about getting them to put forward their proposals?
I'd say, right, let's have a look at all your, before we even look about anything else, let's have a look at all your assets, and let's have a look who's got the most amount of assets around the world, that if, for example, the same situation happened in 5 years' time where the team couldn't afford it, who would be in the best position to be able to pay itself out of it? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, similar to what I said, some sort of financial proof that they can afford to run an F1 team.
Yeah.
Purchase and run.
Yeah, and I'd probably say, no offence, but you need somebody in there that's previously been in a management role in F1 in order for you to get the green light to go ahead. So you'd have to employ somebody who's either currently or was previously in Formula One to deal with the day-to-day finances.
Okay. Well, here's some info for you, because while you two have been talking, I have been reading a little bit of this information put out. Uralkali, which is the Russian chemical giant's name, also made an offer to purchase the team's assets. Additionally, they submitted a development plan for the team and offered to assume a number of what appeared to be questionable last-minute claims against Force India communicated to Uralkali in the hours before the deadline for submission of the final bid. However, the Uralkali bid was rejected. Following the submission of their proposals, the administrator refused to engage with the Uralkali team, did not reply to phone calls and emails, and communicated with Uralkali in a single email following close of business on August the 7th, 2018, that it had entered into an exclusivity arrangement with another bidder regarding a proposal to rescue the company. The company also claims its demand for a transparent and fair process to ensure equal opportunities for each bidder was not respected. A proposal by Uralkali for bids to be submitted in sealed envelopes and opened in front of representatives from each bidder was rejected by the administrators. Now, the people that were in charge of the administration have said all bidders were given equal opportunity to submit the best deal for Force India, but it would appear that as Steve mentioned, the not secret bid but closed bidding may not have been the case. So let's say, for example, if you want to buy him, James, and you go, I'm willing to pay 500 million and here's our experience, well, I go, well, I've got the same experience as him, but I'll give you 550 million.
Yeah, it sounds to me like somebody's got bribed somewhere.
That wouldn't happen in Formula 1, would it?
This Russian energy company, they don't happen to have like a Russian ballet team that can go and jump up and down on somebody's penis for a bit.
I wouldn't put anything past the Russians.
We don't fix anything.
I'm not even going down the Russian accent route, James. I don't need to be fucking assassinated by Putin.
All you need to say is, my getting is always, we never throw away clothes.
Whose clothes?
Their own clothes. It's so cold.
Anyway. So, anything else pre sort of Spa Grand Prix? Any other F1 news or anything you've seen F1 related recently?
The fact that if McLaren do return to form in the next couple of seasons, Alonso has said he'll return to McLaren.
Has he?
Yeah. The option is there for Alonso to return if the team returns to form.
No,
that was not the reason.
It is.
What have you done, James? Can you hear James laughing? Yeah. This could be an interesting story. So what is it that isn't the reason? Come on, James. Oh, okay. James is meant to have done something, but he hasn't done it.
A cup of coffee in a doghouse.
Oh, and you said, I've made this because I love you. And she's gone, that's not the reason.
No, she was like, oh, I could hear you bad mouthing me on there.
You haven't actually, though, have you?
I just said that I had to go turn a movie on for it.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's right, yeah.
Because she can't do it herself, you said.
Yeah.
Oh,
you did add that bit.
Oh, no. Forgot about that.
You're going to have to go and take her a biscuit now, James.
She's not a dog, Dave.
Oh shit! I don't mean it. I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it.
Sit.
Oh, you already are.
Oh
God. No, do not do that, James. Well, you do not need to get a divorce before you're even.
Well, what about a wagon wheel? Do you think she'll like that?
I was going to say something really dodgy then. So I won't. But yeah, I don't know what Vicky likes, James. If she likes a wagon wheel, she might appreciate that. Yeah.
Right, well, we'll see how this goes then.
What you have to do is you have to go, look, I'm trying to lose a bit of weight, so instead of me eating this, I thought I'd give it to you. No, don't do that. Actually, are you trying to fatten me up, you bastard? No.
Don't say fetch when you throw it.
Come on, man. We're all going to get a beating, right? As much as I like you, James, I'm never visiting you because I've got a feeling Vicky will kick me arse.
Like Kirsten did when I visited Ray.
I don't know. So anyway, so Alonso then. I wouldn't necessarily say that seems a bit dodgy to me. That says to me that perhaps Alonso feels like he can still do it, but he just can't be asked to fuck about, sort of fighting his arse off for 9th or 10th on the grid. Which, to be fair, I think everybody would agree he shouldn't be fighting in that position.
But also, if he's costing McLaren 50 million a year salary, that's 50 million that they don't have to pay out if he goes off and does other stuff for a season or two.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is, it's not a small amount of money.
No, I mean, it's not very often you'd get someone saying, look, I tell you what, don't pay me, I'll do it for free, and if we get good in the end, I'll take a bonus. I mean, I did see an Arnold Schwarzenegger interview the other day to do with the film he made, Twins, where to help them actually get the film made, he said, you know what, don't pay me. Instead, I'll just take a percentage of
royalties,
the royalties. So if the film does well, then I'll make my pay that way. And after it had been released, it worked out that he earned a hell of a lot more money that way than he would have done had they paid him, because the film was a massive hit. So yeah, I mean, it'd be a risk, but I can't fault Alonso for going. But nobody that I can think of has had a career in Formula One, gone away, come back and been just as good, if not better than before. Mansell couldn't do it. Prost, okay, he did go away, come back and won, but he had a car that was fucking ridiculously better than everybody else's. Mika Hakkinen was going to do it, didn't do it. Schumacher hasn't been able to do it. I mean, a few have tried, but I don't think anyone's really made a success of an F1 return.
No. I think one of the worst ones was it Bourdais?
No,
Ferrari.
it's got to be Badoer.
Badoer, that's what I meant.
Badoer.
Luca Badoer, the worst driver ever to sit in a Formula 1 car.
Just to sum it up, I was actually watching some on YouTube about him the other day, and yesterday. Alright, in the 2 races he sat in for Massa, he failed to qualify.
He did say that he'd never driven that car, had he? He had no idea where the buttons were on the steering wheel. He pretty much had he didn't have a lot of time to prep for his first drive out.
So why was he put in the car then? If he was clearly out of his depth, why were he put in the car?
Well, Schumacher was going to come back, wasn't he? But he failed the next strength test.
Out of all the people that must drive Ferrari GT cars and all that lot, why pick somebody who used to be in Formula 1 over 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Because he was the test driver. He'd been doing lots of driving on the sim rig.
Probably because he was the only one that had his race suit there. Because I mean, given the strict rules about what underwear you can wear, you probably can't wear somebody's race suit that hasn't, like, you can't wear a race suit that ain't got your name on it or something like that. I mean, to be fair, when you look at it from a medical perspective, if somebody has a crash and it has their blood type information and all that stuff on their race suit, if it's the wrong information, you kill the guy. So I suppose from that respect, you could go like, he can't race, the information's wrong. But yeah, it wasn't a great choice having Badoer go in. I mean, but that's the difference. I mean, you look at Paul di Resta when he stepped in the Williams. I mean, he struggled, but he did a damn good job. But that's because he was current, he was up to date. He'd been fighting to get into that car anyway. So although it was tough for him, he had a bit more of a chance, whereas Badoer didn't really have any chance whatsoever. But I can't think of anybody that has raced in F1, been a success, gone away and come back to be a success again.
On this thing I was watching, actually, it was it was like the worst drivers in Formula 1 history, and he was one of them. But one of the names that I read was a guy that actually, I think he died at Spa in 1938, and he was racing for Mercedes, and his name, this is the reason why I remember it, because of his name. His name was Dick Seaman. And I'm not kidding. All right, Dave, you can Google it now. Anyone else can Google it?
I'm not Googling Dick Seaman on my computer. All the shit that's going to come up for that. Okay,
1938, Dick Seaman raced for Mercedes. Yeah.
Thing is, you know, some people listening to this are going, I'm going to Google that. Yeah, make sure you put private browsing on first, otherwise your kids will be on your computer and go, Daddy, what's Dick Seaman? You do not need that conversation.
I'm pretty sure his first name must have been Richard.
Must have been.
Surely.
Here's a question.
You wouldn't call your son Dick Seaman, would you?
Oh, I don't know. If your surname is Seaman, you're probably going to have a laugh with it, aren't you? But if your name was Richard Seaman, you would not shorten it.
How did he die? He didn't splat against the wall, did he?
I don't know. It came too soon.
1930, you said he died.
1938, I think it was.
Bloody hell. Anyway, bringing things back to reality a little bit, here's a prospect for you, a thought for you. Ferrari don't very often have a test driver that ends up driving in Formula 1 again. Badoa was the exception because they needed him. Sato did when Schumacher broke his legs. I think it was Sato anyway. But I don't know if he was actually a Ferrari test driver at the time. But I know he did come in. But could Danny Kvyat find himself back in a Toro Rosso?
No. They've already shot the guy twice. There's no way they can allow him back.
I can't see him wanting to go back in a Toro Rosso, but I could see him back in a Formula 1 car at some point in the future, because he has got Russian backing, and if it is a Russian consortium that's taken over at...
Yeah, if
it's a Russian consortium that was going to try and take over at
Force India,
if they get that money in elsewhere...
It's that torpedo company.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way: if the Russians can get the Americans to elect a president, then they can get a guy into a Formula 1 seat.
Yeah, hang on, how can they get the Americans to elect a president, but they couldn't get an administrator to elect them to buy a race team?
That's true. That's a good question. Okay, here's one for you. I had a question for you and I've forgotten it. My apologies. I was quickly trying to read and talk at the same time. That was it. Steve, you mentioned something about something that James shared with us that I've not seen yet.
Yes, James, you're probably better at explaining this than I was, because I tried to explain it to Dave before we came on air, and that is the director's director's cut, I suppose you could call it, of the...
I'd say director's
incident.
Commentary.
Yeah. Try to explain the video to Dave.
So what is it? What is it of?
James.
Sorry, I thought Steve were going to start talking then.
No, try and explain it to Dave for us.
So I want to know, what is this video of?
Basically, a bit like what we were on about, like if let's say for example we were just in charge of the cameras and you were like, right, we need to have somebody just constantly watching Vettel because he's in the lead. It started to rain, then it's like this director you can imagine him sat in front of a telly with a bloke at the side of him who's directing all the camera work, and he's constantly being fed information from about 6 or 7 different people, like, oh, somebody's just spun at the pit lane entry, and he's like, don't worry about that, focus on this is more important. And it's really showing you how the German Grand Prix were actually captured on the screen. It's like, have we got the helicopter camera ready? No, a few seconds yet. Right, let me know when he's ready. And they go through the hairpin, and then on the exit of the hairpin, they'd be like, right, the helicopter's ready now. Right, cut to helicopter, and then it'd go from that angle. So you kind of got a bit more of an idea of what actually were going on. The only way that this could be possibly better is if they showed like 8 different screens that they were looking at. But still, it's good just listening to the audio to get an idea of how much is going on when they're getting the camera footage. But I think up until the German Grand Prix, they've just been fucking about all year.
Yeah. Well, you just imagine, Dave, right? If you've got, you've done commentary with on yourself by yourself before, and you've done it with 2 other people. You can imagine doing commentary with 8 people, and you're the one that's got to decide what you show. And you've got 8 people saying, "Sorokin's is stopped. Someone's just cut the pit lane. Someone's just," but they're all saying it all at the same time, live on commentary in your headset, and you're trying to decipher what to show.
I think my response would be, "Fuck off!" Shut up, will ya?
But that's it, because like I bet majority of the time it's like, right, follow the leaders, not much happening, but then as soon as it starts raining, all the information's flying at him.
Yeah.
But he's not actually having to do commentary. You know, he's just directing what's going to be shown on screen.
And he's like prepping. Somebody will say, "Oh, we've got a replay ready. Just let us know when you want it switching," and he'll go, like show replay in 5, 4, 3 or whatever, and then say, "Okay, now watch Vettel go into the motor and wait till we see the doors before we come away," and then and there's lots of. Okay, it's so intense.
That bit's kind of interesting. That
the only way I can describe it is it must be like directing a movie where you've got no second take.
Yeah. Well, the bit about the replays I find quite interesting, because we've talked about replays before, and they obviously must have some kind of parameters for by the time we get to lap 3 we want to have shown a replay of the start or something like that. And we've mentioned it in the early races about the replays and showing people in the crowd or people in the garage. It's an absolute fucking waste of time. And the fact that somebody is sitting there going, like the director is watching the race and listening to all the information and saying, right, okay, play the replay now. That to me shows that there have been quite a few races this season and definitely last season where surely somebody has been saying to that director, I've got Fernando Alonso, he's getting ready to overtake fucking Jean-Pierre Gaultier or whatever you want to fucking call him, and the director's gone, yeah, play the replay now and we'll play a replay of that in a minute, and you're like, hang on a minute, you got that a little bit wrong, mate. So
Yeah, I personally believe whoever's in charge of the camera work and all, whoever the director bloke was, I bet whoever it was got sacked around before Silverstone, because Silverstone and the German Grand Prix
were fucking brilliant.
Of such higher quality.
Yeah.
It changed his experience of Formula 1's proper shit to. Yeah, the race was slightly more exciting, but the camera work made it go up another 2 levels.
Yeah, the coverage of it was better. The coverage was. I mean, I mentioned it. I sort of asked you, sort of Silverstone, Germany. I sort of questioned: is it because they were back in Europe at proper racetracks and it's specific directors, or did you get the impression from watching this video that it's the same people that go to each race? Because when you listen to the commentary, I don't get that impression that it is the same group of people, because they tend to say, oh, like, we'll end up looking at whether the Mexican director wants to show us. And that to me ain't right.
They might have changed that now. They must have changed it. Well,
yeah, they must have clearly. What it'll be is Liberty Media can't be fooled for long. They'll have just gone, fucking hell, we're losing TV rates. Every single race they're going down and down and down. Get somebody from some similar sport, some similar motorsport that does a shit hot job. Let's get them in. Let's pay them a decent amount of money, and let's send them to every single race. Because ever since, they've been really well documented of the races.
I mean, when you think about it, when Steve introduced us to those interviews with former racing drivers and the former doctor, the FIA doctor, I was surprised when watching that one that he said that when they used to go to Grand Prix, it used to be a doctor from the area that would go to that race. It wouldn't be the same doctor that goes from race to race to race. I mean, okay, Sid Watkins would go, but the other doctors that were with him were people that from that area, rather than people that would go to every Grand Prix. And he said it wasn't really until him where it was Sid Watkins and him would go to every race. Because
his main primary role was to be an anaesthetist. Can't even say that word properly, but it sounded okay. Because normally you'd have a neurosurgeon, an anaesthetist, and then the head doctor, which Sid Watkins was. So basically I'd have Sid Watkins and they'd go to Brazil and they'd get a Brazilian anaesthetist and a Brazilian doctor, a neurosurgeon or whatever. But if Sid Watkins can't communicate and they're not used to dealing with motor injuries, it's not really great, is it?
Yeah.
But if you've got the same crew of doctors that go from race to race, if you know a guy's had a head injury 4 weeks before and he's just returned, and you know if he has another injury and it's another concussion, that you've got to have maybe a bit more careful with him when you're extracting him from a car or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
No, he'd be fine. He'd be fine.
Yeah, he'd not head injury, he'd just bump. I mean, if Murray Walker was a doctor, fucking where does it hurt? There. All right. I mean, we know. I'm not going to go on to about gaming much here. I just want to sort of use as a reference. We know, like when we were doing commentary together, when we'd all done our own bits of commentary, but when we sort of came together as a 3-man team doing commentary. If you remember, I said to you guys, I said, look, it's going to take us a little while to get our mojo going, really. But once we work out a few of the kinks, we'll be all right. And that's exactly what happened. Like, we were talking over each other, we were missing some things, but it took that first race for us to go, right, guys, we were talking over each other quite a bit, maybe we need a little bit of a code word. And that process continued on for a couple of years, and even went into the teaching of new people, saying, look, you don't want to talk over each other, but if you do want to cut in, here's a code word that you can use. That basically tells everyone, look, shut the fuck up, I need to speak. Now, that's nothing like being a doctor, but it's the same kind of thing. If you've got 3 people who've never worked together before, you are going to have problems. But if you've got 3 people that have been working together for a number of years, they're not going to have anywhere near the problems. When it comes to the doctor side of things, you don't want problems. And when it comes to the director and side of things and the footage, Formula 1 would benefit from having the same group of people going from race to race to race than having different people doing it at each Grand Prix. Because if the
reason for that is if you've got somebody that's normally talks quite normal, it's like there's an overtake happening or there's this happening, then all of a sudden that same person pipes up with, "Oh my God, you're going to go on a federal freeway." You know that he means it, because he doesn't normally sound like that. Yeah. So you can respond to the way people's reactions are. But as an F1 fan, it's not a job I'd want to do.
Yeah, it's not a job I'd want to. It's a job I'd be interested to sit in on and learn. I mean, do you remember when a couple of races ago, Martin Brundle got on one of the cameras on the practice session? Yeah. And he was saying, because the cameraman basically just said, "Oh, you can have a go if you want." And I thought it was a brilliant little piece. And Brundle was saying, I can hear him, there's so many people talking in my ears, and I can hear him saying, right, Vettel he's being shown on camera 19, get ready camera 20, get ready 21. It says I'm number 22, so I'm ready. So he goes, get ready number 21, right, Vettel's on 21, get ready camera 23, right, Vettel's on camera 23, and Brundle's going, he's missed me, because they didn't want to show whatever he was going to catch, because they thought it might be shit. Now, I didn't have a problem with that. I would have liked to see what footage Brundle caught, but at the same time, I like the fact that whoever was the director, I think it was Hungary, whoever was the director at that race went, I know you're doing your bit for your TV, but I've got a show to produce.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, end of the day, it's in Liberty Media's best interest to have total command.
Yeah. I mean,
they shouldn't be farming it out to that local DOS brigade.
No.
Oh, we're all jobless. We could do something. Yeah, we could do something. Yeah. Can you hold the camera? Yeah.
What we're looking at?
What?
Something noisy just went past me. I don't know what it was. It put me off. I couldn't hear you.
Thing is, if locals want a job, then they can clean up afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, that's not being disrespectful, but yeah, I mean, you look as well with the marshals. How many times do you hear them say, especially in Canada, where you hear them say, "Oh, we've got the British marshals here to help out"?
Yeah.
Personally, I think the marshal. I mean, for me, I would like to see the marshals be the same marshals going from track to track as well.
Because, yeah, they should be paid a fair whack for what they're doing.
Yeah.
The thing is, they're not paid. They don't get paid at all. No. It's all voluntary.
That's in terms of motorsport. That's a complete fucking disgrace.
Yeah. The thing I can understand at smaller circuits, like for example Donington Park that's near us, that's all volunteer. All marshalling is volunteer. But I could understand the smaller racetracks still going down that volunteer route, because if they don't, they may struggle. But to be fair, if marshals were paid, you may actually get more people interested in doing it. But the thing is, well, to be honest, if it was paid, you could go, right, well, we might end up having people like applying that they're not up to the job. Okay, that's true. But you may have mental motorsport fans that know what they're on about, know what they're doing, understand whether they're in a potential crash zone or not, know when they need to be safe, and they're going to get paid for doing something they really enjoy doing. There's a good chance that they're going to stick with it. Whereas if it's all volunteer, people may really enjoy doing it, but if they can't afford to travel, or they can't afford to, like if their main job means that they've got to work some weekends, that's a marshal you're missing. But admittedly, in Formula 1, I do think that they should be paid at a Grand Prix weekend, even at Le Mans. Now, I don't know what the situation is in America. Perhaps if Drew's watching, he might be able to comment. But I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube clips about Indy cars and NASCARs and stuff like that, and they always go on about the safety crews. Now, the safety crews tend to be under some sort of a company name. I don't know whether it's a sponsor of the safety crews or what, but there's plenty of them. They've got decent vehicles, they're quick at responding, they seem to do a damn good job. Now, I don't know if they get paid or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do, because at the end of the day, they are risking their lives doing a volunteer job, basically.
The ones in Korea weren't getting paid, were they? Well, that's the risk you take, though, isn't it? When you've got people that are not used to doing it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's like
there's that much money in Formula 1. There's no excuse for them not to pay marshals.
Well, let's put it this way: if every team paid £1 million towards marshals, that's what, £10 million you've got to pay marshals over the course of the season. Divide that by 21. I don't know what that equates to, but let's work it out, shall we? Do a little bit.
A lot.
I've got to get my calculator out. How many zeros in 10 million?
We're talking about 400,000 a race.
Divided by 21 equals 476,000 per race available to pay marshals. Now, I don't know how many marshals attend a Grand Prix, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the 100, around 100.
Yeah. Oh, easy. When you think about each marshal post, got about 4 different marshals on it, because you've got the one on the headset, then you've got the one that's got the flags, then you've got one that's got the fire extinguishers, but not each marshal post has fire extinguishers.
Yep.
Then you've got and one of the marshals is a spotter. One's got a whistle. I know that.
Yeah, he's to keep the dogs away.
One's there. What have you got? I've got a whistle.
Got a whistle.
No, but that's. I know that when the race is finished and they go on the track to clear the debris and stuff, if a track vehicle comes round, that's some marshals may not see it or hear it. They blow a whistle and don't know when it gets near.
Well, to put it into perspective, right?
Yeah.
If each team, apologies people if you can hear loads of creaking and crackling and stuff.
Oh, it's on my chair again.
Steve's chair's going mental. James is shouting, Bella. Okay, put it into perspective for you. If each team put £1 million of their winning or earnings towards marshals, right? Divide that by 21 races, then divide that by 100 marshals. So if there was at least 100 marshals at each event, each one could be paid £4,761. Now that means you could have 200 marshals and they'd each still get £2,000 each. Now that would be an excessive wage to a degree, but as David Harp's saying, then there's cranes and vehicles. Yes, there are, and me personally, I think all of the cranes, all of the vehicles should all be the same vehicles at each circuit and should be taken around by Formula 1. Okay, that incurs a cost, but it comes down to that same thing of you got the same people, the same equipment, they know exactly what they're doing. Now,
it could be like a travelling circus, but it's all got F1 branding all over it.
Now, I understand that each racetrack will use a local recovery company for their flatbed trucks and stuff like that, and I don't really have that much of a problem with that. But admittedly, I don't like seeing flatbed trucks on a racetrack like we saw in Azerbaijan, because that to me just screams if someone has a problem and they're going towards that, they're fucked. If they hit the back of one of them, they're fucked.
Yeah.
But as well, like if F1 had their own equipment everywhere and they had a fair amount of it, it prevent situations like what happened with Jules Bianchi, where you just get a random JCB. Have a vehicle that is designed just to pick Formula 1 cars up, not move a load of fucking soil.
Yeah, I mean the thing is as well, you'd have like these JCB drivers going, no, I can't. I'm not going to put my vehicle there. It's dangerous. And that all comes from experience, not necessarily fear. And even taking Dave the Harp's comment about then there's cranes and vehicles, yes there are, but to be fair, the FIA or the circuit providers have to pay for that anyway. Maybe that's sort of how we're in the situation that we are, in that each circuit has basically had to pay to host the event, pay to promote the event, and probably has to pay to put on the like the marshals, the recovery service, all that kind of thing. So it's not a cost that the FIA have ever had to pay. But to be fair, if I was owning a F1 team and the FIA said to me, look, we're thinking of making it where each team donates £1 million of their winnings at the end of the year towards the marshals, the vehicles, all that kind of stuff, and we guarantee that the marshals will get X amount of pounds for each event that they do, I go, okay, where do I sign? I wouldn't hesitate, and I'm pretty sure the drivers probably wouldn't hesitate either, because let's face it, if you're a driver, you are going to want to know that if you fuck up and you crash, that you're going to be safe, that the people coming to you are going to look after you. A little bit like, how many drivers' interviews have you seen from the past that said, oh, well, whenever you had a big crash, the first face you'd see is Sid Watkins. It was then you knew you were all right.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got, hello, me Fernando, how are you doing, my friend? You're like, fuck off.
Oh, you don't look so good.
Where are your legs? Your legs seem to be missing, my friend.
Over here, over there,
and over there. But anyway. But the thing is, I do kind of like James's idea though of a vehicle, a specifically made vehicle for picking up an F1 car.
You could take 5 of them to a circuit. There's one designated at beginning and end of each sector.
You could just have it with a big scoop on the front.
Just scoop the car up.
Scoop it up and flick it over the fence. Okay, I suppose we better talk about the Spa Grand Prix at some point, hadn't we?
Just a quick reminder: we're still need to decide on some
predictions. Yeah,
predictions. As in alternative predictions to what we normally would. So if there's anyone got suggestions of what we can predict, that'd be good.
Yep, feel free to put your comments in the chat. James, seeing as you weren't here for the first 15 minutes, it was something that me and Steve started talking about. So is there anything that you would, not like you specifically, might like to make a self-prediction on, but is there any predictions that you think would be good for us three to have as a prediction for this weekend's Grand Prix?
Spa. Well, I'd probably say, are we going to have a collision at Eau Rouge during the race? Or a big moment like what K-Mag had? Oh,
yeah, especially considering that there was 2 massive LMP1 crashes there, wasn't there? Recently.
Yeah. First time with Halo, so they might not see a car crashed at top of hill.
So, okay, so if for one of them we had Eau Rouge crash, yes or no, and if yes, who and what lap? Bonus points if you get it all right.
Ericsson. Or Grosjean. Them two, well, especially Grosjean, I think he's out at end of year.
Okay.
So that's another vacant seat that could be taken up by Kvyat.
Well, I think that's a seat that could be taken up by Leclerc if Leclerc's not replacing Kimi Raikkonen at Ferrari. But then saying that, which is better, the Sauber or the Haas? I mean, I'd be tempted to say, you know what, I'll stick with the Sauber because their rate of progression has been better than any F1 team I've seen in recent history. And considering that McLaren used to have a phenomenal rate of progress, Sauber's is like, McLaren had started the season going, oh, we're struggling a bit, 7th, 8th, and by the end of the season won 2 or 3 races in a car that probably shouldn't. Sauber have gone multiple laps behind, started the season, struggled to, hang on a minute, they're there for top 6 finishes.
Yeah. I mean, if I was him, I'd stay where he is unless he goes to Ferrari.
Okay. Right, James, Ericsson or Grosjean then, any idea what lap they might crash?
Probably say, what's number of laps?
No idea. 55?
Alright, I'll say 30. About lap 30.
Okay. Right then, we are going to need another thing to make a prediction. I'm going to leave it open for a little while, see if any of the viewers or listeners have got any ideas. I know David Harper said that he predicts Lewis will say man in an interview. I reckon you'll be right with that one, Dave. That'd be a little bit like saying Steve will go for a shit on our podcast. It's a guarantee. Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do while we're waiting. We'll go through the predictions, and we'll see what conversations we end up having about Spa this weekend. So, Steve, who do you think is going to take pole position?
It's 44 laps, by the way.
44. It'd be funny if you just said 29.
Hamilton.
Okay, James.
Vettel.
Ooh. See, now I'm thinking it's difficult. I think this one's a difficult one to predict because we've no real idea what's been happening in the teams over this summer break. So we don't know if anyone may have made major gains or anything like that.
Well, the factories are supposed to have had so much time shut down, aren't they?
Yeah. How did they police that one? I mean, how do you stop someone working at home on a laptop? I'm gonna go Kimi. He's been improving his form in the recent races. I'm gonna go Kimi Räikkönen. Okay, race winner then, Steve.
Hamilton.
No surprise there. James?
I always go for something stupid, so I'll go sensible. I'll go Hamilton.
Okay, and I'm going to go Vettel. I'm going for a full ass this week, by the way. By the way, James, just to remind you, you need to score maximum points, and you need me and Steve to score none to really try and catch up, by the way. Okay, so your podium 3. Steve?
Hamilton.
Yep.
Bottas.
Yep.
Verstappen.
Ooh. James?
Hamilton, Vettel, Räikkönen.
Ooh. Okay, I'm going to go Vettel, Hamilton, Ricciardo.
Nah.
Yep.
Nah. Because they will not. I'll tell you now. Because he has said he's leaving Red Bull, they will not allow him to finish ahead of Max Verstappen.
They're not going to have an option. Verstappen's not going to be in the race at the end. Okay, first to crash out then, Steve.
Van Dorn. Because it's his, well, it is his own Grand Prix, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
closest to his home.
Well, he is Belgian.
No, he's Dutch.
No, he's Belgian.
Thought he was Dutch.
No, he's Belgian.
Is he?
Yeah, he's
okay, it's his home Grand Prix.
Okay, James, first to crash out.
Grosjean.
Okay. Right.
Turn 1.
So Grosjean's going to crash out at turn 1, but he's also going to crash on lap 30 at Eau Rouge. What's he going to do? He's crashing out at turn 1. He's then going to run up the hill. It's going to take him till lap 30 to get there, and then he's going to get run over by Ericsson. Okay, I'm going to go for Stroll. I think his eyebrows are going to get in his way, and he's not going to be able to see as he goes up Eau Rouge. Okay, Steve, Eau Rouge crash, yes or no? And if yes, who and what lap?
It would be yes. Stoffel Van Dorn, lap 1.
Ooh. Okay, and I'm going to go no, there won't be a crash. It gives me, I mean, if you guys are right, you got a chance of 3 points. If I'm right, it'll only be 1, but there we go. Okay, so we still have got room for one more prediction, and we'll leave that open for a while. So if anybody has got any suggestions of a prediction that we can make, feel free to comment it in the chat, and we'll see what we can do, and we will revisit it in a little while. Okay, go then, guys. Spa Grand Prix, obviously we've had the summer break. Last few races before the summer break were improvements on previous. Are you looking forward to this one? Have you enjoyed the break?
I've not missed Formula 1 as much as previous years.
Yeah, I think because we had that mad spell of triple header, I was quite ready for a break from F1, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So you're looking forward to the race then?
I don't know. I should be, yeah, but Formula One's been a bit not great, and I'm but Spa is one of those circuits that if they don't get too spread out, it could be a good race.
Is the Spa circuit a track that you think Herman Tilke might get his hands on and shorten massively at some point?
He should never touch it. He should never touch another Formula 1 track in his life.
But if you were going to change anything about the circuit, is there anything that you would change?
Yeah, I'd change the bus stop back to the old style bus stop.
Well, that's the obvious one. James, yourself?
I probably would make it so that, you know, like you've got the hairpin. Have it so that it's a massive flat out section going straight into the hairpin. Because right now you've got that chicane, and cars can't really get up to enough speed to really do a damn dare move on the brake into that hairpin.
You mean remove the bus stop completely?
Yeah, completely remove it. Yeah, you have them going flat out, blast past the pits, and then slamming on the brakes.
Well, that'd definitely be. It'd definitely be an interesting one, that's for sure. I mean, there was one of the benefits of the old bus stop is that you would have a chicane, but then you had a bit more real estate to try and get up to speed, so to speak, to have the opportunity to overtake. And it is quite strange sometimes to look at old footage of F1 races around there to see just how different not only the bus stop chicane was, but the hairpin was as well. Like, you think back to the days when Coulthard had the massive crash at the start of the race there.
It wasn't just him, but yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't just him. There was about another 8 cars involved. But the profile of the racetrack in those days was so much different. The hairpin was much further along. The cars could go much wider out. And in a way, I'd wish they'd go back to that, but I don't think they will because of the nature of that crash, albeit mainly caused from wet weather.
Yeah, the other thing I would like to see them do, and there's no reason why they can't do it, and that is Blanchimont should be a DRS allowed straight.
Yes.
But, you know, allow it DRS through there, that might help as well.
I mean, I do remember on the old F1 games where you could use DRS everywhere in qualifying if you wanted to. I did used to love going to circuits and going, right, can I? And so you'd have Spa where you'd go, am I going to need to close it and open it again for Blanchimont, or can I make it? And when you make it and you go, you know what, I can do it, or you don't make it and you go, if I make a little setup adjustment, I can make it. The R130 at Suzuka, even Suzuka's turn 1. I remember you used to turn into turn 1 at Suzuka with the DRS open, and it wouldn't close until you touched the brakes just after turn 1. So I did really like that, and as Red Bull showed, as I'm sure James will remember perhaps more than I do, Red Bull showed there was a lot of places you could keep the wing open if your cars were set up right.
Even at Silverstone, when you're heading towards Maggots and Beckett's, you know, how long do you keep it open before you shut it? You know, because you can take the first bit of Maggots pretty much flat and brake late if you had your DRS open. But you'd be a bit mad to try it around Cox, I suppose.
I mean, having said that though, and I will ask you this, James, so if you're listening, listen properly at this bit.
Yeah.
We've talked previously though about F1 should get rid of DRS, which I do agree that they should, but at the same time, should they get rid of DRS, or should they actually go, you know what, for qualifying, you can have DRS, let's see how big your balls are.
Yeah, I would be quite happy with them saying you can use DRS wherever you want in qualifying, but for a race it's disallowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And maybe that's one of the problems with DRS, that like it does add speed, so people want it, but then in the race it adds a factor that's a little bit depressing. But I mean, to be fair, going to Spa is a racetrack that if the cars allow it, you don't need DRS to overtake.
Could you get up Eau Rouge with DRS open? Should be able to.
We did used to when on the Codemasters games, although they probably had ridiculous grip levels at that point. So you were able. I think Red Bull actually did do it with DRS open for a time, because I think they were the only ones, and no one else was really either brave enough or stupid enough to try it. But Spa is one of those tracks. I mean, you look back to the famous Mika Hakkinen Schumacher overtake on the back marker. I know there was one in France, but there was one at Spa as well, I believe. I mean, how often in Formula 1 do you see somebody so close to the back of a car before the DRS is active, coming out of Eau Rouge? Previously, quite often. It is a track you can overtake on in Sector 1. Sector 2 is definitely more difficult, chances are definitely lower. But in Sector 3 you can overtake as well. But well, not necessarily at a risk, but because of the nature of the chicane, it's a much bigger risk than I think it ever used to be. I mean, Vettel, when he tried overtaking Button and completely fucked it, was a prime example of how to get it very, very wrong there. But it is a track that if the cars allow you to stay close, you can overtake them.
Unfortunately, though, I know exactly what's going to happen. Ferrari and Mercedes are going to bugger off in the distance. Red Bull are going to be slightly behind them, and there's going to be a fucking huge gap to everybody else.
Yep.
Maybe that's something we should be trying to predict then. How many, up to what position will get lapped?
We have done that one before. How about a standout driver? Who will be the standout driver, or who will be the driver of the day?
The announced driver of the day on Sky F1.
Yeah.
I think we should do as well our own drivers of the day, but we're not allowed to have the top 3 teams.
Okay. Are you going to predict that before the race?
But all I mean is,
yeah,
people vote for what they see, and no offence, people just see Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull.
Yeah.
Don't see what the fuck's going on at the back. Whereas if we pay a little bit more attention to what's going on at the back, and we'll do our own driver of the day, who's not in one of them top 3 teams.
Yeah, that's something we can pick
after the race is finished.
After the races, yeah.
Okay.
So who will be driver of the day?
Okay.
Who will be the
okay, so if we predict then who will be, I mean, it's not the Sky driver of the day, but I suppose it is really, because the viewers vote on it. So who's going to be the voted driver of the day, do you reckon?
Yeah, Hamilton. Oh, it's Max Verstappen's country, isn't it? Yeah. Even if he crashes out, Max Verstappen.
Okay, Steve.
Bottas.
Well, I don't think people. Well, if it was just the Belgians voting, I don't think they'd vote for Hamilton. They would vote for Verstappen, but I think the viewers will vote for. I think they'll vote for Vettel. I actually reckon he'll have a boring race. He'll get into the lead early. He won't have to do out, and he'll basically just run away with a win. and he'll get a driver of the day. Whereas there'll be shitloads kicking off further down the grid that we barely get to see other than on a replay, and someone down there should deserve it. I mean, let's put it this way: if Stoffel Van Dorn can finish a few places ahead of Fernando Alonso and Alonso's had a good race, then he deserves a driver of the day. But anyway, right, okay, so that's our predictions sorted out. So is there anything regarding this weekend's race that you want to bring up, you want to mention? Anything at all?
There is something, but I just need to check.
I mean, we're a bit... Nah, there's no for me.
Just give me a minute.
It's a good job I titled this podcast slightly different. I titled this F1 Podcast Spa Preview rather than Spa Preview F1 Podcast. Not that different, but enough to go, you know, it's an F1 podcast and we'll do a little bit about a Spa. But it is a question for you then. Doing a podcast, is it just that we're shit at doing podcasts and can't think of anything to talk about? Or is Formula One just that predictable at the moment that there isn't nowhere near enough excitement?
I think it might be a touch of both, but I think it's mainly down to because we can talk for England, but it's mainly down to if we're not entertained by what we see on track, we're going to be hard pressed to be entertained about. I mean, if you know, here we go. Before Star Wars Episode 8.
Wait, 1 hour 32 minutes. Although we've got to take 15 off for that because James weren't here.
Before Star Wars Episode 8 come out, I was buzzing. I could have talked about Star Wars every day. You know, I was proper, just like in the groove. Since Episode 8's come out, I've hardly even wanted to talk about it.
Mm.
I do talk about it because of other things like the Clone Wars or previous stuff. But in terms of, like, they put out press releases going, Star Wars Episode 9 starts shooting today. And I'm like, don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I bet Vicky's loving it. Okay, well, what I will say is that, I mean, it never is easy looking into the future and talking about what may or may not happen. To be honest, one of the things that I would love to happen for our YouTube channel is, okay, we haven't got a mass amount of subscribers at the moment or mass amount of views, but we don't necessarily do it for that. We do it so that we can come on, talk, rant, whatever, and talk about whatever's going on in our lives, talk about Formula One and all that kind of stuff. And if people want to listen in, that's up to them. They don't have to. But what would be really nice is if through the course of our podcast we could end up in a situation where we could actually attend Grand Prix as I'll Tell You What TV and be in the media press conferences and be able to ask questions that we have to team owners, drivers, and
questions that the everyday person wants to know.
Yeah.
So asking Alonso if he got a Freddo.
You know when that Fredo get going on and like Mary Bulio getting really, really pissed off, and they just love to have been. You know when they start wrapping up, going right, just one more question. I'd be like, me, and they'd be like, yes. I'd be like, you don't happen to have any spare Freddos hanging about, do you, Eric?
See, I would have
just to watch him blow up.
I would have said, I've got a question, but I need a moment. I'll be back in a second. I'd have fucked off outside, gone to the nearest vending machine, got a Mars bar and a Snickers, come back in and gone, which one do you want? Because you seem like you need cheering up.
I'd have given him a Kit Kat because he needed a break.
Oh, that's dodgy. But,
that reminds me of that Alan Partridge episode where he goes, I've been chatting with Bear Grylls and he was telling me about survival instincts and all this lot. And he was going, people seem to think that in order to survive you need a lot of water. But Bear Grylls told me when you really, really need to survive and you cannot and you've got so much hunger, you want a Snickers. It's like what? Would you prefer a ton of water or Snickers? Definitely Snickers.
Oh dear. Right, okay, well it looks like we haven't really got much else Formula 1 to talk about then if we're on to Alan Partridge already. I get no disagreements out of these two on that one.
No disagreement. I think we need to be entertained. What we need is to be thoroughly entertained.
Yes,
then we'll have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I do definitely prefer our review podcast when talking F1 than our preview, because the previews are tough to do, but there has been a lot going on in Formula One recently, and I've been a lot like Steve, where I thought it'd be pretty good to have like 3 back-to-back Formula One races. But to be honest, I really don't think it. I think, what was it, 5 races in 6 or 7 weeks? Something like that. It was just way too fucking much. And like Steve, I was feeling I can't wait for the break, because I need a break. I mean,
do you know what? Right, it wasn't just that. It's just that having a family that doesn't necessarily watch Formula One.
Yeah.
And I was having to spend quite a lot of my time watching, because I don't just watch the race. I like to watch the practice sessions, the qualifying, the before the race shows, the after race shows.
Yeah.
That's not,
Well, I mean, when you total it up, you got an hour and a half of FP1, an hour and a half of FP2. There's 3 hours. An hour of FP3, so that's 4 hours. You've then probably got 10-15 minutes before each of those practice sessions, so you're at 4 hours 45 minutes. Then you've got qualifying, there's an hour before that, so you're up to 5:45. Then there's qualifying, that's another hour, 6:45. Then there's the race, that's anywhere between 2 and 3 hours, so now you're up to 9 hours 45 minutes. But there's an hour and a half of pre-show to that, so now you're over 10-11 hours. But then there's also an hour and a half after show, so you're up to 12-13 hours of your weekend gone. And if you're a single person or your missus don't love you very much, you're fine, you can spend your time
so
watching
you two
it.
are all right.
We're fine, yeah. That's not the reason, James. Sorry, Vicky, I love you really. Just wait until the after show. I've shown a picture of James already. I've got one of Vicky. James, what picture of me? James, you'll have to watch the start of this podcast. So yeah, but if you have got a family, doing that one weekend out of 2 or 3, probably not too bad, the family will understand. But do that every weekend, or 5 weekends out of 7, your family are going to be like, hang on a minute, you need to spend some time with us, you knobhead.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, right, okay, I think it's about time then that, or in a moment, we'll take a break and we'll come back for our F1. No, it's not the F1 after show, it's just our episode 46 after show, where we'll talk a load of stuff non-F1, and you never know, some F1 might crop up. But I will just mention again, this video we were mentioning about the directors, how TV directors cover Formula One, basically. It is on YouTube, and I'll tell you what, I'm just going to click on it, and I will share the link for it on our current chat, so if people do want to watch it, alright, if you've done it, that's fine, and then yeah, if people want to watch that, they can. I'm going to have a watch of it at some point. Okay, it's not showing up as you've shared the link.
It won't share. It won't let me share it on YouTube. You'd have to add it into the description.
No, so I can share it on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So there's the link then for the directors, how they do directing of F1 coverage. So at some point, check that out. How long is that? It's only 6 minutes long. So yeah, you can check that out while we're on our break, and we'll be back in 5-10 minutes for our after show.
Yep. See you in a moment.
Before we do fuck off and disappear though, if you're not interested in our after show, folks, we will be live again next Tuesday for the Spa Grand Prix review, so we'll see how it got on, we'll see how our predictions got on. Also better quickly mention, have a look in the description for a couple of links that you might be interested in if you're into a bit of racing, gaming and stuff like that. Anyway, we'll catch you in about 5-10 minutes for our after show. See you in a bit.
Bye.
See ya.
Blah 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 blah.